As a concept artist, you're expected to create entire worlds from scratch. For AAA games and movies, usually you'll even have to produce something that looks like a photograph. But where would you even begin? Today we are diving into a proven workflow and techniques for concept art used by all the pros to turn a rough idea into a realistic illustration. The kind that is made for all the big games like The Last of Us, Cyberpunk, God of War or any big budget movie. If you're ready to uncover those secrets with me, sit back and let's get started. My name is Tom and I've been working in game development for just under a decade, wearing various hats during those years, with concept art being my primary role for the past 4 or 5 years. Any good concept starts with research. If your task is to design a vehicle, spend a solid amount of time learning about how cars work, their design, and look into what others have already done. For a hero character, you would browse the web for tons of references as well, and if it's a zombie creature or animal, like what I had to do right here, you should also make sure to know all the ins and outs of the animal's anatomy. The more believable and realistic you get these aspects, the better you set yourself up for a realistic outcome in the end. No matter what task it is, it usually starts with a brief. Ideally, it's a very solid brief where the person in charge knows exactly what they want. Briefs can also be more open-ended though, which is where you need to make sure you're exploring all the options and presenting the client with enough examples so they can easily decide what the best route would be. For gathering references, PureRef has become the industry standard in a way. Throw all your images in there, maybe even group and label them, so whenever the client is unsure, you could already have the right refs to back up your work and show them why exactly you've chosen a certain direction. It is also not uncommon for the file to grow until the task is done, as you'll always bump into more references, go deeper into a certain direction, or personally, I just like to throw in old ideas and versions that weren't picked, but do have parts that I liked and could potentially be used in other parts of the project. The sketch is the very first thing you will deliver, also known as thumbnails. These do not have to be very detailed, but they have to be very clear, meaning they need to have a distinguishable silhouette, key design aspects need to be clearly shown, but all the smaller details don't really matter at this point. Even color can be neglected, though some people have a hard time imagining what you're showing them without it, which is why I learned to slap on some quick color. I like to deliver anywhere between 5 and 10 options to the client, sometimes throwing in so-called callouts to show some ideas a bit better. For example, if your character had a sword, which is an important part of the design, you would draw the weapon separately and explore different options there as well. Ideally, you leave the session with a bunch of feedback to consider and the client has picked some options that they like to move forward with. In my case, the hippo was chosen as it's a very dangerous animal that people tend to think it's somewhat cute and underestimate how vicious they can be. They are chill for the most part, but you don't want to get close to one in the wild. Rendering. The aspect that most artists either love or hate. You either have a great time doing it or you just can't stand everything looking bad, no matter what you do. A separate video on that topic is coming. Big thanks to everyone who's watched the first part of it, despite less than 1% of all views being subscribed. Anyways, I have good news. Well, kinda, to all those that hate rendering at least. If you're doing something realistic and it's concept art, you're going to achieve the best outcome by cheating, or rather, relying on photographs for parts of the image or just for additional texture, also known as photo bashing, meaning you could theoretically slap a bunch of pictures together and call it a day. But you'll most likely not get away by just doing that. You will still have to manipulate all those images, adjust the lighting and shading, since it's very unlikely all images will be lit under the same circumstances, shot with the same exact camera and have the exact same resolution. But is this really cheating though? There's no such thing as cheating in concept art. Sadly, I can't remember who said this, but photo bashing has been a common technique among concept artists for decades now. Even matte painters will heavily rely on photographs to replace backgrounds in movies. Not just photos, using 3D is also a very big time saver and a very common tool concept artists will use to create realistic results as fast and as efficient as possible, which is kinda what concept art is all about. Visualize ideas as good and fast as possible for a smooth production. And yes, I have to mention it, even AI imagery has been used for a few years now, but it's hard to get something useful out of it for the rendering stage. It can be helpful for mood boards and some design references though. Please comment below what your opinions are on using photos and all these other techniques for art. I'd really be interested to read those comments. You will see me drag in a picture and pretty much completely change it using various blend modes and good old hand painting to look like it's a part of the creature and not just slapped on. So despite the use of photos, you'll have to do quite a lot of manual work to achieve good results. If I had to break down my process in a few very simple steps, it would go like this. First, paste an image, mask and transform it so it fits nicely. Second, create the layer set on multiply for shadows, make sure the color matches the other shadows though. Third, create another layer set on add for highlights. And fourth, do further adjustments and paint on top as you see fit. Photo bashing is a skill like any other which needs to be learned and trained. If you want to give it a shot and want some feedback on the results or any other art, feel free to join my Discord server, which is a small but tight-knit community where we all learn and improve our skills together. It's one of the reasons why artists in a studio environment grow and learn so much faster. They are surrounded by like-minded people that follow the same goal, get feedback constantly, which helps you look at your art from another perspective. You also get to follow along on my own pieces like this one, which started as a sketch, was built in 3D and through heavy photo bashing and painting is now looking like this. This is also still a work in progress though, and I'll make sure to share the final one on Discord once it's ready. As you probably know, rendering is a never-ending process. There's always something you could still do, but make sure you're not overworking it. You don't want too much detail and noise, though this heavily depends on the style and theme as well. Another great art quote I use a lot is, "Art is never finished, only abandoned," which is absolutely true even for concept art. But eventually, you'll either have a deadline coming up or you'll feel like the piece is finished, which leads us to the final part of concept art. The presentation is really important. Concept art needs to be easy to read and to understand. This is where concept art and illustration are different. Let me know in the comments if you want an entire video on just the differences, because there are a few. Concept art, for example, is used for production or to communicate an idea. Your work will be used by the next artist in the pipeline to create a stunning 3D environment or character. Or it could be used to pitch ideas to the publisher or management. If you want to have an easy life, you better make sure they are not confused by your work. Make as many callouts and sketches as you think are needed. An illustration won't be used in production. Those are used for marketing purposes, as splash or loading screens in game, or in certain cases, they are the actual asset that ends up in the game. Usually, you are the final artist in the line in that case. For the hippo, I'd love to make the light a lot more dramatic and creepy, but since this is a concept, I decided to keep it more neutral. It has a lot of contrast, but the background is very plain. It could be even simpler, to be honest, and it should be pretty clear for the next artist what to do with it. A concept is often just a suggestion, so certain details might change later on. You could be asked to rework parts of it, and a lot of times things will just not work in 3D as you imagined. Having a 3D model as your base would help with that, but sometimes it's the animation where things just don't work. It's all part of the process. Similarly, how subscribing and liking a YouTube video is also part of the process. It's the law, you could say. I hope you enjoyed this little insight into concept art. I could make it a lot longer and deeper, but I think this is much better suited for a YouTube audience. And if you still have questions, you can always leave a comment, or we could just hang out on the Discord server and discuss this topic as long as you want. I met a lot of cool people since the last video, and we had some very interesting conversations about various art and non-art topics. For our next video, I plan to explain the rendering process for illustration a bit more in depth, while still keeping the video kinda short. But if you have other ideas, please let me know. If you did watch the video until now, a very short comment or like would help the video to spread and reach a wider audience. It would seriously be a massive help and is so much appreciated. Thank you so much for your time. I promise it won't take another year for the next video. Peace.